Hey, what's going on, man? I just wanted to say thank you so much for downloading my brushes. They're on your email, you can download them. But first, I wanted to show you this real quick tutorial of how to exactly use my brushes, because what the fuck are you do with the brush if you don't know how to use them, you know? So watch this real quick tutorial where I'm gonna show you exactly how to use them, because honestly I hate when artists do that shit. Like, they're just gonna be like, yeah, here you go, there's some brushes, and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with them? You know? So I'm gonna do this real quick tutorial, and I also created this Facebook group where you can become better with me, and it's a whole art community of people getting better. But I'm gonna talk to you about this in the end of the video, so stay until the end and I'm gonna talk to you about the Facebook group. So let's jump right into Photoshop, and this is my work, by the way. I'm guessing you probably know me, but if you don't, my name is Angel Ganev. I'm a professional lesbian. I do podcasts, I do all type of weird shit, but mostly I paint, and I get a lot of questions on Instagram, you know, like, how do I do this shit, like how do I do colors, how do I do portraits, what brushes I use. So I decided it's kind of time for people, you know, to learn that shit. So let's jump right into the first brush, and it's the sketch brush. Actually, I have a lot of slides here that I'm gonna go through. And first of all, we have the sketch brush. So I know a lot of people just sketch with a basic round brush, and honestly I don't get how. Like, the basic rounds are basic as fuck. Like, it just says it in the name, you're basic, bitch. So in order for you to create better sketches, you need to use the sketch brush, you know. That's why it's called the sketch brush, and it really has this natural just form, you know. You can kind of see it's not just round. And I have an example here that I drew the same sketch with both the brushes, and you can see it just creates this natural pencil look, you know. That's what it's all about. So get the sketch brush, and you just, you know, instead of sketching with a basic round, you just sketch with this brush. Fucking magic. Let's get to the next one. The next one is the brick, and it's my main brush, and here for you I have a little tutorial on edges, because it's really it's just so important, man. Like, everything is about edges in paintings, like where the eye looks, like how everything combines between each other. It's all about soft versus hard. And before I show you the brick brush, which is my main brush, I wanted to just show you this bit, which is like, look right here. I don't even know what's happening right here. Like, it's just some soft fucking shit, and there's a hard edge right next to it, you know what I'm saying? And that's what makes it interesting. So a great technique that I'll use is I'll use the lasso tool. I'll just mark something, and then I'll go with the airbrush, and I'll just softly just put on some paint, and that creates a great effect of just soft and hard at the same time. And that's something I use all the time with my portraits and with everything. And I use it with other brushes as well, you know. Even if I use the brick brush, I'll just go in and I'll make a selection and I'll just go with the brick brush. But the brick brush really is my main brush, you know. I use it for, first of all, let me get over the basic approach to painting. First of all, I start with the sketch, right, with the sketch brush. Then I do the brick brush, which I kind of lay in the colors. I lay in some basic lightning, some basic, you know, colors, and I just go in and I just create all the forms, and then I go in and I render. But the rendering I'm gonna show you later is done with a highlight brush, and it's all about just building the painting slowly. It's not about just going in and drawing the details right from the get-go. Fuck that. You just have to go to the fucking stages. That's what it is. I'm gonna show you a different technique later, which I kind of go in directly into the details, but that's mostly for advanced people. If you're a beginner, this is what you need to stick through. So the brick brush is really something that I use in these two stages. You know, it's my main brush. It kind of has this natural, let me show you real quick. It kind of has this really natural kind of texture. It looks like a stone a little bit, but what I really like about it is that it's not round. Like, to be honest, I hate round brushes. Like, they're just boring. You can't really do anything with them, even though I just showed you the airbrush and it's totally round. Still, my main brush needs to be hard, and it doesn't need to be round. Like, it needs to be fucking rectangular. So if you're painting with a brick, I'm pretty sure you'll get some of my style, you know. So get in with a fucking brick brush. So the next one I have is the highlights, you know, the highlight brush, and it's really something that I use to render things, you know. It's something that I'll stay away from in the beginning. And right here I have a slide where I show you the juicy highlights. You know, after I'm done with a portrait, in order for really to make it pop, I just do highlights. And the way to do that is just you get a color, a really bright color, saturated color. It can be even like teal. You can use it. You can see I was using here. I was using like red and peachy colors, and I just got the fucking green color. So you just go in and really soft. And by the way, you can use the lasso technique that I showed you. You can just mark something and you just go in and add details, and I'll just erase it with a brick brush. So that's a great way to use the highlight brush. And of course, as I showed you in the basic approach, this is the stage where I use the highlight brush. You know, it's really to get, and people think that's the hardest stage, but it's really not. You know, you just play some music and you just get into rendering. Really, the hardest stage is getting it from here to here. Like, this is the most important stage. Here is just rendering. You know, that's just, you know, it's practice. Like, anybody can do that. But this shit, you know, this can be taught. But this shit is really getting it from here to here is what you need to learn how to do first before you learn how to do this. So anyway, the next and yeah, this is another example of going from the brick to the highlight brush. This is the stage where I'll get the painting with the brick brush, and I'll just go in and I'll do some details with the highlight brush. So the next one is the hand brush, and I call it a hand because it kind of looks like a little baby hand. If you just look at it, if you just look at the form, like, look at that, doesn't that look like a hand? So anyway, it's really this crazy brush, but what I love about it is that it pretty much has the same texture as the brick brush. So if you go in and, you know, your main brush is the brick brush, kind of like me, if you go in and you use the brick and then you go in with the hand, it would just look totally natural because they were just born for each other. So the hand brush is something that I use for hair, you know, or anything furry actually. You know, you can see I used it right here. It creates this very natural kind of texture for the hair. It's just perfect for anything furry, all this shit. So the next thing I wanted to show you is my messy painting technique, and this is something that I use all the time, but it's really not something that I advise fucking beginners to be doing, because honestly it's kind of complicated. You know, you have to understand form, you have to understand all types of shit. But if you're kind of intermediate, I would advise you to try out this technique. And in the Facebook group that I mentioned, I'll be doing a lot of streaming. I'll be doing tutorials. I'm gonna show you how to go from basically nothing, from this background to, you know, this complete painting. And it's just really steps. And the way to do it, the way I do it, is with the messy brush. And I have this brush messy. It's probably my most asked for brush. You know, it's the one brush that people are always like, well, what is this brush? Where do you get it? You know, I call it the messy brush because if you look at it, the texture is just really, it's just crazy. And by the way to get this texture is you go in here in the brush presets, brush settings. I don't know what the fuck this is. It's just the brush. You go into window, then you get brush. So you go into color dynamics. And if you go into color dynamics, you can see hue, jitter, saturation, jitter, brightness, jitter. And that basically means how crazy every brush stroke is, like how different it is from the previous one. So that's really all it's about. You know, it's like every single stroke is different from each other. And when you combine that with the fucking weird ass brush, it creates some great ass texture, you know, some crazy ass colors. So that's pretty much it, how I go in from this to basically this, you know. And then I'll just go in with the brick brush and with a highlight brush and just kind of render things out. But in the beginning, it's just all about the messy one. You know, this is the underpainting and this is the final. Like, this is how I do it. And it's a great technique because it's just, the colors show through. You know, it's not just a boring ass. Like you can see here, there's a lot of reds and a lot of interesting colors that kind of show through. So the next one is Messy 2, and I'll use this for like backgrounds and stuff, like just to add some textures. It's kind of like, they're kind of like cousins, but they don't really do the same thing. So they kind of have some family issues, you know, between each other. You know, it's really this brush that just is great for like flowers, backgrounds, all of this. You know, you can see right here, I used it in the background. Then we have the glow glow. Shit, I can't even pronounce that. The glow brush. It's so special that it just makes me mispronounce it. I call it the blobby because it looks like nothing. It just looks like a silly fucking soft brush. And again, I'm not a big fan of soft brushes, but this one is really special because it has some texture in it. So if you get a crazy saturated color and you put it on color dodge, you can create a new layer. You go into color dodge and then you go in with a blobby, it will make everything fucking glow. Like, this is how I create all my crazy glows and everything. And you can do that with the airbrush, but let me show you real quick. The airbrush doesn't have any texture, right? So the airbrush, this is the airbrush, right? And this is the blobby. Hold on. This is the blobby, right? So the blobby, even though it kind of has a hard edge, it still has a lot of texture. And it actually looks like it has a lot of texture here, but when you paint with color dodge, you can't really see that texture. You just see a lot of little particles. So it really looks like it's glowing. And then we have the rim brush. You know, the rim brush is something that I use for rim lighting. You know, it's the lighting that kind of comes behind you and it just makes everything pop. And by the way, you can totally use the glow brush here, the blobby, but it's really, the rim light is just kind of hard, this hard ass brush where it really looks like an ink brush. You know, you just go in and just create all this lightning and you just press and press and press, and it just creates all these interesting forms. And it's actually great for what comic artists usually call character silhouettes, and it's really these random ass little silhouettes where you just go in and you just kind of paint a little blobby, and you just go in with a, you know, you go in with a razor and you're like, oh, this looks like kind of like a dude holding a stick, you know, and that's his fucking legs and shit. It really just sparks your imagination, you know. It's great for any time you kind of want to create some quick ass characters. So that's the rim brush. And finally we have the stone brush, and the stone brush is really for anything in paint, anything in nature, you know, anything with some crazy ass texture. And you can see I use it right here for snow, but it's also great for like trees or plants or anything, you know. It has this, it's really hard, it's really like, it's just like, ugh, I don't want to deal with it, but it's great for adding texture, you know. You can see right here, you pick a lighter color, just go in and it looks like snow, you know what I'm saying. And I also use it for portraits, you know. Sometimes I really want this hard ass texture because a lot of artists have these really soft ass portraits, and I'm kind of sick of that, you know. I want to have the whole thing. Like, I want both soft portraits and hard portraits. So after I'm done with a portrait, sometimes I'll go with a stone brush and I'll just create all these interesting colors, you know. It's actually great for things like scars or like blood. If you just go in with a darker color and you can create a scar, you know what I'm saying. It's amazing. It's amazing for anything from just nature to all that. So those are my top 10 brushes. You know, we have the sketch, the brick, airbrush, highlight, hand, messy 1, messy 2, blobby, rim, and stone. And I know it sounds kind of complicated, so I would advise you to bookmark this page, bookmark this video, and just rewatch it a bunch of times just so you can kind of remind yourself and teach yourself how to use these brushes. Because don't get caught in the trap of just using one fucking brush. You know, you need a lot more brushes, you need a lot more things. So this is for the brushes, and I wanted to talk to you about my Facebook group. You know, I created it, it's called Do The Warriors, and it's really me just live streaming and people watching me and asking me questions. I do this shit all the time. I do little tutorials, I explain, people watch me. It's really interesting. I talk about from anything from painting to life to jerking off. I don't really talk about jerking off unless you're interested and you ask me about jerking off. I will talk about jerking off. So it's the way to join the Facebook group is to go to my Patreon. You know, I just set it up, and probably if you're watching this right now, it just comes out I have 0 Patreon. So go in there, check how much it has, and go in and pledge and get into the Facebook group, and let's get to painting. You know what I'm saying? I want to teach you. Write me a message on Instagram and let's get to fucking painting, man. So click the button below, check my Patreon, and I'll see you there, man. Peace.